All sorted by DeeDeeNaNaNa. I always love it when good color palettes are used in Zeepkist levels. It can be hard to find the right colors, but surprisingly, Zeepkist has some pretty close paints to the licorice sweets this level is themed around. I often dislike how bland the void skybox can feel, but this level does it well. I have just associated this skybox with relatively low effort decoration in the past, and has since soured me on any level that uses it. I'm gonna quote something Mao said about one of my own levels when I was first starting out building. I appreciate that it's not just a copy-paste job, but a copy-paste job with a little bit of rotation. That's stuck with me for a while, and I always notice whether or not other creators apply it to their own floaty decoration. I also like how the further away ones are grouped like little handfuls. So cute. The gameplay is a little learny in spots, but it is genuinely fun to optimize your times. This kind of gameplay definitely reminds me of another creator, Quick Racer, who similarly does these wide downhills you drive across, combined with a lot of wall rides. I think the arrow placement is all good and well, and most of them are placed in positions with nothing directly behind them that could decrease their visual clarity. There could have been a line on the tip of this wall ride, because it's not so obvious at first you need a slight flick upwards to catch the downhill. Just a slight nitpick though. And this downwards transition is nice and wide, so the player has a lot of room to react properly. I really have to applaud how good a choice that is, especially because it's right at the end, and no one wants to miss the finish by that little. So the start of the level is a little slow. I like the gimmick, but it's actually quite technical, and therefore you could be restarting here quite a bit. As I've said many a time before, that adds up quickly. The technicality here is cresting the summit diagonally as to not get airtime. In of itself, not terribly difficult, but to do it fast and with as little turning as possible is a whole nother thing. This barely matters, because it's just a small thing that only sweats in a lobby will really care about, definitely not me. But the payoff of doing the start this way is it sets you up nicely for an early corner cut through checkpoint 1, which will definitely save you time and speed. Now, I said most of the arrows are placed in good spots, and that's because of this one here. I'm actually not quite sure if I just have too much speed in this section, but trying to even slightly touch this quarter pipe would just send me straight into the wall. I found it much easier, and probably faster, to take this downhill wider and just go straight through this bit. And because of that line, the arrow here appears way too late. I would have moved it here maybe? Because as you're coming down the hill, it's not entirely obvious where you're going next. And I guess for the faster players, going on this quarter pipe at all will just kill your run. But that's all I have to say about this track. The theming is wonderfully executed, and now I'm hungry. Being a gravity map, the faster players should have a blast optimizing this, and I did too. And if I'm honest, decoration like this makes me see that the void isn't all bad. But alright, let's see the next review. The Unicorn Invasion of Dundee by, and I know I won't pronounce this right, Sahne, Bohnen, and Denkar85. I'm so sorry. I mean, what a track. I absolutely love it when creators go full world building mode and create masterpieces like this. There are way too many things to point out, so if you want to see all the details for yourself, you're just gonna have to play it, and you really should. Now, this gameplay sure is unique, but we'll go over that later. First, the good. Obviously a lot of love was put into this track. From the amazing statues made by Denkar, to the fights and explosions throughout the town that make this feel like an active war zone, there's a lot of action to see here. You can look at an area and feel the impact of what occurred, or is occurring. I love it, and I wish Zeepkist was more optimized because there is a noticeable and harsh fall off to the quality in areas you aren't racing through. This is already 6,000 pieces, and still somehow runs perfectly smooth on my machine. So whatever voodoo magic optimization they're doing here is the best they can do. Unfortunately, the love for this track ends there, because there is some stark contrast between the quality of the decoration and the quality of the gameplay. This track is so much fun to look at, but if I'm honest, I have a hard time loving the gameplay. The mountain you start in is okay. There are a couple blind corners because of some rocks that get in the way, but they aren't terrible. This inner wall ride is quite satisfying to get, and easy too. But as we transition into the town, this is where the problems I have start to arise. First of all, this is just so clearly blind. I have played this level before, and yet playing it again, this transition still got me about 10 times. A skill issue, I know. The first recommendation I can give is a first-person switch, but I don't think that would even help. It is simply too tight, and if you're in the wrong place, you can skid out so easily and lose pretty much all of your speed. Honestly, I would have just entirely reworked this transition. There's not much you can do to save it in its current state. The green dots kind of help, but not really. And the feathers on this landing are just way too strong as well. They don't even let you land, you just float over the ramp entirely. And this wall ride right after sends you straight into the wooden wall, which is pretty unsatisfying. The jump then launches you blindly up. The landing is at least aligned with the takeoff, but you don't know you have to go straight, and you might even be off angle because you just got done crashing into the wooden wall from before. Then we have a calm. This section is totally fine. Sick flip. More satisfying wall rides that give you really clean entrances. The green dots definitely work here. And back into it, this booster makes you go out of your way to catch it properly, which is quite unintuitive. Into a jump, which yet again flings you blindly forward. A tight shimmy around this jail cell, say hello and goodbye to the princess, into yet another blind jump where you will certainly miss the little ramp you need to get the risky finish. I don't have much for the matter meter here, but maybe that first blind transition greatly matters. But I will say, personally, this level is so let down by the gameplay, which I really wish wasn't the case because it is so gorgeous to look at. I wouldn't be opposed to some sort of version 2 or remaster with some better gameplay, because if I'm honest, this level deserves it. Overall, this is an absolutely beautiful level with great storytelling and world building with some less than fun gameplay for me. It's hard to enjoy it when I'm constantly frustrated with the blindness and unintuitiveness of most of the track. Now that's wrapped up, let's move on. Moonlit Promenade by Codewalt. This map is so pretty. I absolutely love the aesthetic. It's super smooth too. Recently, I've been really into this new era of Codewalt's gameplay, combining their skills with making amazing environments with very smooth off-road gameplay with the banked pieces. And if I'm honest, it was hard to sit down and write this review because I just kept playing the level. Of course the decoration is great, but it's also unique. The yellow leaf color is not often used, and especially not as the main one. This whole palette really is just great. But the gameplay, the main path is so smooth. I know I keep saying that, but it's true! My favorite section has to be this banked loop, and doubly so the wall ride included. They are both extremely satisfying to drive on. Signage is used perfectly to show the main and pro paths, and it's really refreshing to see that if this level was only the main path, it would be fine without any arrows. The only area maybe being this banked turn into the downhill. It is a little blind because of the bush, but you'd just be following the road anyways. So this is yet another multipath map. Feels like a trend recently. There's the main path, which is nice and smooth, and the pro path, which is okay. Taking all the pro routes saves you a substantial amount of time, meaning in a lobby, you would have no chance to compete if you just went the main way. And I really love the main way, so it's kind of a letdown for me that the pro path is so precise. It's not bad, but I just don't find it as interesting. The least fun path has to be the ending for sure. It's a neat idea, but landing on this curved wood piece never felt quite right. It always feels a little jank to me. Oh, and did I mention it's pretty blind your first time here? I mean, driving up to this, you have no idea what you're flinging yourself into. And once you're on the wooden path, the curved road is still barely in view. It definitely feels like a last-minute addition, and is a stark contrast to the quality of the rest of the level before it. There's not much else I have to say about this. Overall, I want to love this track, but the pro paths take it down a peg or two for me. It's legitimately so pretty though, and despite the problems I had with the gameplay, I will still keep playing this level because I simply like looking at it. And the rest of the parts I didn't mention are very smooth. By the way, Codewalt, I am totally stealing these trees because they are too good. Hope you don't mind. Alright, let's move on. ZSL, Who Needs Paint Anyway, by Renergy. Another no-paint ZSL map. This theme definitely meshes with Renergy's build style already, so I expected this to be good. And it is. This map looks good and feels good. The wall rides are satisfying, the banked turns and a little bit of off-grid gameplay mesh together very nicely. Although getting onto some of the wall rides can feel a little awkward. The flow presented here is just great. Most transitions here are quite vanilla, but the more unique transitions fit perfectly with the rest. Track visibility is amazing. I finished it my very first attempt, so that's saying something. But that does not mean this level lacks optimization. There are time saves all over this. Easy to complete, difficult to master. That is what I personally feel makes an all-around good Zeepkist track. And the guides that do exist in the level are placed in the most sensible positions. These arrows guiding you to the wall ride, and these dots that got me through this tube section without any issue. This kind of blind jump leaves the player a lot of straight space ahead of them before it throws them into the next part. Good thinking. And I quite like the decoration. It's like a chaotic vanilla with intersecting elements and varying angled slopes. The trees feel a little overdone, and more space could have been filled with fewer but larger scaled ones. I do like how they add a splash of color though. There's not much this track does wrong. As I mentioned before, the wall rides can feel awkward to get on, but that's probably just a me thing. I do have to mention though that there's a noticeable lack of a checkpoint in the ending section. Throughout the track, the checkpoints feel quite evenly spaced, but then the entire end has none, and it definitely stood out to me as someone who cares, maybe a little too much, about their split times. And along with this, I got to thinking of some cheese. Now, I never pulled it off, but I got pretty close, and I think it might be doable, although extremely hard. If it is possible, that would definitely ruin this map for me, as I quite enjoy it, and a cut as hard as that just gets dumb. I know cuts are hard to notice as a mapper, because you get used to the line you intend on, and become blind to any different possible lines players might take. But ultimately, the easiest thing I can recommend is to draw a straight line between the start, all your checkpoints, and your finish. It should give you a good idea if there are any possible cuts, and if so, where you need to add another checkpoint. So overall, a great map, and I think a perfect fit for a competition like CSL. The cut, if possible, would make this slightly less fun, but in its current state, the cut doesn't seem at all feasible in a 5 to 7 minute lobby, so I think we're probably safe. Alright, let's see what's up next. Commando 100% by sfisabbt. Took a few tries to get that. This review was written by justMaki. A very unique take on using the finished block force fields as a hazard to avoid. The finishes resembling vision range is a very cool idea, and I can't get enough of it. Not many mappers ever use this idea. I can only think of two, one of them being myself, but that map was a lot different. And I think there's a lot of potential in it yet to be discovered. The decoration resembles a military base infiltration. Love the idea, love the execution. The checkpoints reaching to the sky also give a great feeling of it being an actual strategy game, as if they were waypoints. This is a rare moment where I actually enjoy a mid-speed track. Not so much at high speed, but we'll get to that soon. The turns and weaves feel pretty satisfying between the line of sight fields, and speed conservation still works pretty well. Unfortunately, this map has a couple big flaws. The first one being a speed clip at the beginning. Right at the start of the map as you drop out of the plane, if you arms up the perfect amount of time and land your car so that bottom hits the edge of the wall at its base, you gain a massive boost in speed via a unity bounce, a rare occasion where that's actually an advantage. This trick is very inconsistent though. Done well, it can give you over 50 more speed than originally intended. The map also becomes a lot less smooth with the extra speed, as you definitely start overjumping down hills and the turns become impossibly tight. And the other problem here are the line of sight finish blocks. Depending on your game settings, the blocks might be very hard to see, and if a player playing this level has force fields off, they're in for some confusion. Learning the pattern isn't too difficult, but it can be frustrating. For the stubborn players who will refuse to turn up their force fields for this level, you could duplicate all the finishes once, and the added layer will greatly increase the red outline you see around the block. Overall, this is a really well executed idea that is unfortunately greatly let down by the speed clip. In a casual lobby, it doesn't matter, and the level is just great. But if you're going for a world record run on this track, be prepared for an unforgiving challenge, cause that unity bounce is all luck. Alright, let's move on. Balisko by zivecef. A playable Ziv map? Ain't no way. Anyways, this is some pretty difficult full speed, high speed, fastness. It's a really fast track is all, and a difficult one at that. There's quite a bit of blind throughout this track, and the constant high speed means you really have to be focused and have good memory for some of these setups. So I actually really like this color palette, and I kinda wanna use it for myself. It reminds me of chocolates. You guys need to stop making me crave for sugar. Now it does use the void skybox, but the added rocky backdrop really takes away the blindness and turns it into a very nice background for the level. And after I learned this map, I am enjoying it. It definitely feels satisfying to get a clean run from start to finish, but finding that clean line totally takes a bit of learning, unless you're like Maki or something. But even if I've talked about how I like this map, there are some definite flaws. First of all, I really don't like the start. It's so precise, and it's just reset hell trying to get a clean beginning. At least it's at the very start and not somewhere in the middle, so there's that. And this wooden tube is just so bad. I'm sorry if that's too harsh, but I don't know why this is how it is. A first person might work, but it's high speeds and wood, and you skid out so easily in this part because you have absolutely no idea where you are or where you're going. Just for reference, tight tubes are just gonna be blind, third person or first person. You gotta make sure your players have ample reaction time before you fling them into something else. Then, this jump can catch you by surprise, it throws you into the banked turn pretty unexpectedly, and if you react too late, you could definitely fall right off. And then this transition. If you're using the off-rotation banked pieces, you can use them to get back on the grid smoothly. This just feels too janky, and does not feel good to drive on in the slightest. The jump right after, you do jump straight across, but coming up to it, you could easily believe you jumped slightly left because of the arrow in the distance, where you would just smash into this border instead. The ending is okay, but this transition into the pipe U-turn I could never get quite smooth. And the banked jump is also just quite blind. And mean. There's a hole that I feel is perfectly where a player's intuition would take them. This damn hole. Overall, it's definitely a learning map that won't be for everyone. And as much as I dislike blind parts, this one still remains fun after I learned it. Something about the high speed and quick transitions really scratches an itch of mine. It's a nice challenge that doesn't feel completely unfair. Mostly. And that was the last review. Thank you for watching this episode of ZMR. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to join the Discord in the description below to submit your maps for review in an upcoming episode. I've been Linzi, and I'll see ya.